A circuit that has been standing in the foothills of Mount Fuji since 1959, the Fuji Speedway is one of Japan's most iconic tracks. The Racing Club International Multi-Sprint Series heads here tonight for round 4 of Season 3, and we're just about to get qualifying underway. Taking you through the action tonight will be myself, Joseph Black, alongside RCI Jack, who will come in a minute, taking you through on board with the cameras, and off board as well will be Ted Edwards. And hopefully we're going to be bringing you a very, very good broadcast and some very exciting action. 20 minutes of qualifying is about to get underway. And, well, welcome into the commentary box, Jack. How are we feeling about tonight?
Always great. Always great. Always happy on a race day. Really love Fuji. Love this circuit. It's certainly a driver's circuit in this game. Sector 3 is a true beast. And anyone who's ever driven the circuit for any amount of time always goes, yeah, Fuji is great. Sector 3, lovely. It's a true challenge for a lot of these drivers. And I am excited for another round of great multi-class action.
Of course, the multi-class action, the best kind of action that I think you can get. That's just my personal opinion, and everybody else is correct. The multi-sprint series is back, of course, round number 4 of the season. And, well, we've had 3 rounds of it so far. Jack, I believe you've taken us through all of it. So just sum up how it's gone so far for some of these LMGT3 drivers, the first out on circuit.
Well, I definitely, unfortunately, haven't been here for every round. I think I've only managed one of them. I was traveling quite a bit at the beginning of the season, but I've tried to watch as much of this as I can. It's been fantastic rounds, fantastic racing. The multi-sprint series for the last 3 seasons have given us some excellent racing action. Spa has seemed to be the circuit that brings the most out of these drivers. Season 2, as well as this past one in Season 3, were absolute thrillers to watch, and I'm sure to drive it was something else. The LMGT3 field is always a tight one, big names at the front, the likes of Christopher Strapen. And I think last week we had a new winner in the LMGT3 series around Monza with Maciej Kasperczyk. However, that name is properly said. I will butcher it till the day I die, basically. But a really tight field up at the front. There's a lot of great midfield battles, and things really heat up when those hypercars come through, especially around this circuit. Cars tiptoeing around each other, trying to stay out of each other's way without losing too much time. So a good one, a great one on our hands today.
Having a debate with somebody earlier today, actually, in fact, about multi-class racing and about the conduct that drivers should be taking. And, well, their opinion, and I think the shared opinion of many, is that the slower cars should just stay on the racing line and, most importantly, be predictable. And those that are on the who are in the quicker cars are expected to be able to get through and just, make their own way through. But I think that's a little bit different when you get to a session like a qualifying session, less like a race one where everyone's trying to go as quick as they can. And when you get to the hypercars, the field does seem to tighten up and everybody gets very, very close together. Good to see a healthy number of drivers racing this evening so far in the LMGT3s, and we'll see where everybody else comes through later. Cormac Malloy at the moment with 2 purple sectors, and he'll be hoping to go on and become the first driver to sit on that pole position. And, well, we'll see as everybody is going to come up to the line. Philip Brescia, the first one. Kevin Boss, the third one. Callum Kerrigan did go up to provisional pole position, but Cowley and Shipston, they now occupy the front row, and their lap times 2 seconds ahead of Kerrigan and Boss in third and fourth, as Kasperczyk is going to go up to the front row, and he's going to beat out Townsend. Shipston dropped off already, and Cowley's 1:44.018 looks very, very strong.
Yeah, a lot of strong time so far on these first laps. These cars take, a lap or 2 to get up to temperature for sure, but I think once the fuel gets at its absolute lowest, these drivers will be at their absolute most committed. Christopher Strapen is one of those drivers that we look to see towards the front of the field. Been absolutely rapid in the past. I do believe was our champion in Season 2. Season 3's not gone 100% to plan for him for sure. There's actually, I think we've had 3 different winners in the past 3 rounds. Let's see if we can make it 4 for 4 on race winners, at least in the LMGT3 category. but Christoph already gone. It's purple in Sector 1, a personal best in Sector 2, and it's all comes down to Sector 3. That's where the most amount of lap time can be found from driver to driver, maximizing the final corner, maximizing the run down the long back straight. We'll see where that time jumps him as he crosses the line on 142.6. That brings him to P1, actually, a mighty 1.4 second gap. I say that as Philip Rachia actually jumps immediately to the top, followed by James Cowley. The times are scrambling already in the first 5.5 minutes of the LMGT3 qualifying.
Certainly are. They are falling down and down and down. Now the fastest time is going to be the 1:42.4 set by Cowley, and Christopher Streppen drops down to third place as it looks to get quicker and quicker out on this circuit for the LMGT3s. They're taking the opportunity to really try and fight their way up the field, and there's lots of recognisable names, one of them being Raphael Huell, who goes up to fourth spot, and that is a good lap time from him. I haven't seen much of him over the last few months. I'm sure he has been racing, but it's good to be watching some familiar faces back. Christopher Streppen, another one, as is Philip Brescia, and they are currently occupying 3 of the top 4 spots. Tom Shipston 5th, but Cowley, of course, in that first spot, and everybody's going to be aiming for that 1:42.424. Very good, nice rhythmical lap time there, that target time. But yeah, I mean, it's a very, very likeable circuit, I think this is, Fuji.
Absolutely. It's got a little bit of everything. The cars can be set up in a super aggressive configuration, not a ton of tall curbs. Well, there are a couple of tall curbs, but ones you certainly should be staying away from. One of them that can catch you out is this one, turn 10, Dunlop corner. As you see, Raphael Huell taking enough of the curb, but not too much to unsettle the rear of the Porsche. I actually heard something interesting talking to a couple of drivers before I came to the box. All of the setups for the Porsche actually run an extreme amount of fuel. They overfuel the car by 5 to 10 laps to make sure that there's enough weight on the rear of that car so that it is able to stay stuck throughout the lap. And I think that is it is incredibly interesting that a car can be so unhappy around a circuit but still have enough pace that when you put extra fuel in it, it still can put in mighty lap times, as Raphael Huell puts in a mighty lap time, jumping him up to P2.
Certainly does. Very good lap time. Purple in the first, purple in second. Third sector, though, there is still some time to be found. Thibaut Roskam is going to be coming up to the line. We'll see if he can beat the 41.8 that Philip Brescia set to go up to the top. The lap time's very much coming down here. Roskam up to the line, and it's going to be a lap time of a 43.5. Good enough for 10th spot. But there's still some time to be found on that one. 4/10 separates Brescia and Huell at the moment, and that was an unbelievable lap time, the first into the 41s, and no doubt not the last, as everybody gets their cars lighter towards the end of this session. The cars are getting lighter, so therefore they're getting quicker, and well, now is the opportunity for them to really lock in. 11 minutes and 40 left in the session, and the hypercars getting ready, so the LMGT3s are going to be wanting to get their lap times in pretty much now.
Yeah, definitely. They are sort of, I'm certain, getting a bit impatient waiting at the line, 90 seconds till their session starts, and wishing for that 90 seconds to be as short as possible so they can get out and light up the circuit times.
Yeah, they're wanting to be lighting up those times, but at the moment they are not doing just that, and I think that is going to be the quickest lap time of all. Philip Brescia going even quicker, a 41.4, and he's going to be up at the top of those positions and up at the top of the LMGT3 class by 8 whole tenths of a second. That is a huge gap. That will send shockwaves through the rest of the field.
For sure. I think, fortunately, I had a momentary glitch with the stream. Totally everything went frozen. Apologies for that. But we're back now and back on board with Maciej Kasperczyk, our reigning winner from last week at Monza. His BMW did him proud, and he did his BMW Mark proud, putting in a great performance, and so far in P4, doing, a Good job to get that car. I feel like the BMW maybe isn't as quick around here as it is around Monza, the BMW and LMU, known for its straight line speed, but overall drivability as well. A great car to sort of jump in if you're unfamiliar with the LMGT3 field, but at its absolute most, it will be a quick car. As now the hypercars are beginning to feed onto the circuit, and this is when qualifying is going to get really fun.
Really is, because they're going to have to be very, very careful with everybody else at the moment. 9 minutes 41 left in this qualifying session. The LMGT3s have had 11 minutes to see what they can do, and at the moment, Philip Brescia on the top of the field. Christoph Verstappen, though, has gone up to second place, and he looks to be cutting into that gap that Brescia has at the top and putting the pressure on him at the moment. But Verstappen at the moment still remaining in behind, and the lap times will continue to flow, and we're watching with Maciej Kasperzic, and that is going to be the front row. Lap times are coming down. Philip Brescia under pressure.
Seems like it, definitely under pressure, but I think he might be breathing a sigh of relief. Matt Townsend actually puts in a very good lap of 142.2, fourth position for him, and I believe that's going to be the end of our times for the LMGT3 field. Yes, all LMGT3s are in the pits, and now it's time for those hypercars to get those tires warmed up, get their energy levels at their batteries, at a level that they are most comfortable with, and get on for a lap, as Hugo Merrill is going to be the first to cross the line to start their lap. The hypercars are a absolute treat around this circuit. Super tough, but super rewarding when you get it right. Obviously, Hugo braking absolutely as late as possible for turn one. Interestingly, most hypercars take it in second gear instead of first for that low speed of a corner. Now coming down to turn three for Coca-Cola corner. A corner where if you catch LMGT3 traffic, you will be scared. You will be terrified. It is not a great place to catch traffic, but no traffic in qualifying through 100R into the turn six hairpin, pushing the car, using as much circuit as possible, getting as early on the power as one can be comfortable with. Now coming down through turn 7, turn 8, turn 9, 300R, and that Dunlop corner, that turn 10, being a lucky overtaking opportunity for some cars. Maybe we'll see that happen here today, but one where you need to be incredibly brave and incredibly in control of your car. And now deep into the sector 3, the tough stuff, turn 14 and turn 15 next corner. Super difficult, super easy to get loose in the rear, but now Panasonic corner, the final corner, one of the most important corners on the circuit. Did Hugo Merrill get it right? Well, I think we will see once the times start to feed in, but winding up that Porsche 963 to cross the line.
Yeah, he is, and that's going to be pole position for him, of course. At the moment, as only a couple of drivers have set times, he has got a 1:29.036 at the moment. He's the only driver into the 29s. Nani in behind is in the 30s, and there's two drivers side by side. Curtin going up. He's going to be one of the two, and he goes up into the front row of the grid, but still just outside of that 29. Merles is pushing that lap time of a 28, which would be a sensational time. We've watched a couple of onboards with a couple of the LMGT3s. I think it'll be good to watch the man in third place, Curtin, at the moment, as Van der Veken goes up to that front row. Would be good to watch you on board with Curtin, and well, Jack, I mean, you've got experience of this circuit. You're a big fan of it. Take us away for an onboard lap around it with the hypercars.
Oh, I'm a big fan. Super slow, though. I can promise you that. Not nearly. I certainly don't have the pace of these drivers, but it is such a very good time. I think Louis Curtin is not going to consider this lap to be a good one, but is going to do everything he can, get the battery charged back up, get the tires back into the perfect window in order to get that lap done. He went very wide at turn 5, but, you know, you can still sort a decent lap time with a minor mistake like that. You get your braking points right. But Louis Curtin looking for that final corner. Let's see, he doesn't actually V off his corner too much. That seems to be preferred lines between drivers and between cars, but no, he takes it sort of the standard racing line. Louis Curtin getting ready seeing an Aston Martin Valkyrie just ahead. Not 100% sure who's in that Valkyrie, but maybe a bit of a distant tow from Louis Curtin. He crosses the line. That's Jack McDonger ahead. Louis Curtin spotting his braking point maybe just past the 100-meter board, goes down into second gear, gets on power early, cuts turn 2 as much as he possibly can, getting ready for the turn 3 Coca-Cola corner, brakes very late, very committed into there, gets a little bit caught up on that exit curb. That can unsettle the car very easily, but doesn't seem to bother Louis Curtin very much through 100R. Now breaking into the hairpin, he might actually catch up to Jack McDonger in this Valkyrie. We're going to see how Louis Curtin manages to deal with that, whether he backs off of his lap or just hope and prays that Aston Martin Valkyrie has enough pace to stay ahead. Braking hard now for Dunlop corner. Turn 10, the Valkyrie goes deep, gets out of Louis Curtin's way, so a sigh of relief for him for sure. Now through to turn 13, a blind crest of a corner. You want to get it turned in as much as you can, maybe going a bit deep there on the brakes. Another tough corner. My least favorite corner on the circuit, turn 15, next corner. You got to set it up perfectly for the final corner. Panasonic, turn in early, get on power as early as possible, clipping that inside curb. Definitely a tidy lap. I think Louis Curtin glad that Valkyrie got out of the way when it did through sector 3. That would have been a bit sketchy to be following a car through there, but Curtin does a 130.4, a purple first sector, but definitely not quite having the pace in sector 2 and sector 3. We will see if Louis Curtin is able to improve.
Yeah, we certainly will. And Louis Curtin now is he's looking to go further up, looking to try and challenge that lap time we watched on with Hugo Merles, who currently has actually improved on it by 0.4. Zino van Driesche improved to that 29, but not a 29. He got to a 29, but by that time Merle had managed to improve once again. There is going to be yellow flags out on the circuit. Drivers just backing off the laps and trying to get out of the way. It's a confusing situation with only 3 minutes left in qualifying, and everybody trying to come through and set their final lap times. We'll see where everybody stacks up on this grid as race day will be soon to get underway. 2 minutes 46 away, and the LMGT3s have had their qualifying. We know who's starting where for them, but for the hypercars, still yet to be decided. Looks pretty strong in the favour of Hugo Merle for pole position. Zino van Driesche looking to line up alongside him on the front row, and Milan van der Weyken not too far off either. Just having a look at the timings to see if anybody's improving. Not at this point in time, and in fact, we do have a couple of the drivers, the top 3 in fact, sitting in the pit lane. So they've decided they're not going to go again. And if they are going to go again, they're leaving it very, very late to get themselves out and get prepared. Billy Octane purple in the first sector, but only did enough for 8th. And that, in fact, lap was backed off from, as he has a best lap time that is a little bit slower. He has a best lap time that is 1.5 off of that pole time.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how those Valkyries do around a twisty, turny, a lot of low-speed corners of the Fuji circuit. Those Valkyries are most happy in a straight line. They are also quite happy in high speed, so it'll be interesting to see how they can dish out race pace. Qualifying pace doesn't quite seem to be there as Martin Vaselli crosses the line. A 129.4, that's 5th place. A reasonable lap time, and for everybody watching at home, those were not 3 purple sectors. LMU seems to do that. Sometimes it's just one of the many goofy things that this sim is known for. Obviously, the broadcasting tool, we're not 100% there yet, but we do the best with what we have, and we have a great time doing that. Isn't that right, Joseph?
We certainly do, and I mean, it's nowhere near the level of the F1 side, because the difference between the developers is they'll actually try to look and fix that issue. But yeah, we're coming to the end of the qualifying session now, 52 seconds. So it's the final lap times for all. And we'll see where everyone is able to stack up. Of course, Merle has managed to improve just that little bit more, 28.4. And I think that's going to be the end of the man's session as he is into the pit lane. Most are into the pit lane. Martin Vaselli in 5th place is going to be the first one that is still out on that circuit. Marco Podolski we're watching on with as he gets a 29.976. And that's going to be enough to hold on to that 9th place. But actually, I think that may well have been an invalid sector or second sector. No, it hasn't, because he's actually moved up to 7th spot, as my timing screen appears to have frozen, which is very helpful. But 13 seconds left in the session. Everybody is coming to an end for their laps. Martin Vassali, I mentioned him. He's in 5th. And can he move up to 4th, to anywhere higher? Yes, he can. Front row of the grid for Martin Vassali. Anybody else on lap times? Anybody else looking to challenge the 28s? Of course, there's 2 drivers in there at the moment. Usama Nani isn't going to be challenging that time. He's going to be diving into the pit lane. And I believe that may well be it, with Marco Podolski not improving. 0.6 down on Hugo Merle's time at the moment. Peter Varga 1.1 off. But he is in 11th place, so there's a bit more of room for him to improve. He's 7/10 off of Ryan Gill at the moment, and 7/10 off of the top 10. Klaus Neiring, the first driver who's gone green in that first sector. He currently sits in 8th place. He's currently 1.6 off of the pole time, very close with Octane in behind him. But he still has lots of room to improve. Of course, he has improved in that first sector. He's almost half a second, though, off of Merle's time, and that shows how unbelievable the lap time of a 28.4 was. And Klaus Neiring in the Aston Martin, looking to see if he can challenge for anybody up at the top. I don't think he'll be challenging for pole position, but if he keeps that momentum up, I don't even think 4th place is too far off, because it's 4/10 that he's lost. 8/10 for Van der Weyken is the difference between himself and Merle. Klaus Neiring has not got a second sector lap time on the board. We saw this with Marco Podolski a minute ago. So Neiring is now going to come up to the line, and we're pretty unsure about that final lap, but it's going to be a 1:29.8, and that's going to put him in 7th place. That is an improvement that takes him past Podolski, but nobody else. And I think that's going to be qualifying come to a close.
Another brilliant qualifying session. I do love the sort of split qualifying where you get to see each car at their best, not worrying about tripping over each other. It's all about getting the lap time. But I think Klaus Neiring is a driver I'm going to keep my eyes on. He did actually win at Monza. That is basically the most ideal a circuit can be for a Valkyrie. So we'll see how he does in race pace.
We certainly will, and we can run you through the grid now. Hugo Merle on that pole position, Martin Vassali alongside him on that front row, Zeno van Driesch and Milan Van der Weyken making the second row of the grid. Louis Curtin, Usama Nani on the 3rd row, and Klaus Neiring, Marco Podolski, Billy Octane, and then Ryan Gill will be rounding out the top 10 in the hypercar class, and that's a very, very strong few lap times too, into the 1:28. And Zeno van Driesch 0.6 off of Merle on that pole position. But you feel as though there's very much opportunities for some of these drivers. Van Driesch was one of the drivers who took to this game straight away. And we'll see what he's going to be able to do, as hopefully we'll get the LMGT3 standings in a couple of moments' time. And we'll see where they are in their top 10s, or maybe the lower part of the hypercars. Plenty of drivers here tonight, which is a great, great thing to see. And there we go, the top of the LMGT3 class. Filip Brescia, Maciej Kasperzic, Christoph Verstappen and Matt Townsend make up the top 4. Raphael Huell and James Cowley. Cowley, the early pace setter, but unfortunate actually not to remain with Brescia towards the end of the session. He starts 6th. Tom Shipston, Wojciech Rebecki, Callum Kerrigan and Richard Withall will round out the top 10 in the LMGT3 class. I mean, you mentioned you had an eye on a couple of the drivers, but who are you having a look at in terms of the LMGT3 class as the cars line up on the grid?
You know, it's hard to say. I mean, both classes have been pretty topsy-turvy in terms of, expectations versus what the race actually delivers. But I love the Lexus. Philip Brescia is obviously on pole in that Lexus in the LMGT3 field. So I'm going to go ahead and put my hopes behind that car. It's the home hero as far as a manufacturer. So hoping he goes well.
Yeah, we'll see whether he does go well. Of course, the race is just a few moments away, and you can see all of the cars that are lining up on this field, just demonstrating in front of you. Then we get the chance to look at a few more of the cars. Peter Varga, Iridaish Partes in the 6th row of the field. Malin Maresh and Jack McDonger on the 7th row of the field in the hypercars. And it's going to be Matt Malcolm and Jordan Navarro. Malcolm, the slowest time in qualifying. Navarro, he didn't set a lap time, so he'll start behind. Max Sunyev and Reese Wilkinson will be starting on the 9th row of the field, and the 10th row of the field will be the start of the LMGT3s, and Filip Brescia and Maciej Kasperzic, as we looked at just a couple of moments ago. And of course, we ran you through the top 10s of both the classes, so you get to see everybody now, we're going to try and run through every single one of these drivers and give them the appropriate plaudits, because everybody who turned up tonight has made an absolutely humongous grid and will make for some absolutely incredible racing. Shipston alongside Rebecca, and that is Shipston's beautiful livery that we saw with the teeth. Callum Kerrigan, Richard Whittle, and then it's going to be Thibaut Roskam and Kevin Boss in 29th and 30th overall on the 15th row of the grid. Keith Whittle and Cormac Malloy in 31st and 32nd. Cormac hoping that his qualifying pace will not translate to the race. Then Martin Minarek and Lance Taylor 33rd and 34th. 17 rows of cars then that we have ready in front of us, and the action ready to get underway. You can see that the LMGT3s ready to get underway. They are just sitting there, they are waiting, and it's one of those moments where, you know, you've done everything you can to prepare, and now it's just a case of can you deal with that? Can you make it to the end of the race absolutely fine? Because it is harder said or harder done than said. It is very easy to say, you know, I'll just make it to the end of the race. I've said it plenty of times, and well, let me tell you, it is very difficult to race, especially around a circuit like Fuji, where you're expected to be on it, and especially in multi-class racing, where you're extra specially expected to be on it from minute one. But yeah, the drivers grinning up, getting ready. The final preparations have been completed. They have no more opportunity to, you know, set any more practice laps. That is it for all of these drivers. And, well, it allows us the opportunity to thank some of the people here today that have made this one possible, the RCI. The RCI partners here on RCI TV. Of course, we have them revolving around in the top right of your screens. As well, actually, we'll go back to that later on in the race. IMB Raceware, one of them, and that's the one on your screens at the moment, and that's the one, therefore, that we're going to give a little bit of a jump start on everybody else. Everyone's hoping not to get a jump start on this rolling start here today. Hugo Merle and Vasily will be lining up alongside each other on the front row of this field. Everybody's gridded up. Everybody's ready to get underway for this stretch around the Fuji Speedway. It's going to be 16 corners they will challenge around, and it's going to be a race that is going to last an hour and 20 minutes. And the drivers just rolling up, just setting themselves and waiting for the call from the race director for the green, for them to get underway. It's very, very slow. It's a crawl. Everything pretty much remains silent. You can see the crowd just bearing and waiting, and their breath is just, you know, completely held. They cannot wait for this one to get underway. Hugo Merle rolling up to the line, and the green flag has been waved, and the race has gotten underway. We'll see where all of the drivers stack up as they head down to the first corner. Martin Vasily is going to get, I believe, bogged down. He's going to get actually into the lead of this one. And, well, he continues to lead this way as that's going to be Hugo Merle getting bogged down. Zeno Van Driesch on the inside line. Usama Nani going around the outside, but he's going to get bogged down, and he's going to be fighting with Louis Curtin. And they're going to continue fighting through the first few corners on this racetrack. Usama Nani squeezing Curtin wide, and Milan van der Weyken looking to get involved. Not a great start for van der Weyken, and Zeno Van Driesch up to second spot. Usama Nani sending it on the inside of our poleman Hugo Merle, who's had probably the worst start of all, and well, Usama Nani not able to make his way through, and yeah, they remain in position for now as we end what will be the first couple of skirmishes, but that doesn't mean that the action at the end of this race is done at all. Hugo Merle and Usama Nani are going to remain side by side in that first sector as Nani desperate to make his way through. Martin Vasily leads the way, then Zeno Van Driesch in second spot, and Hugo Merle is going to somehow hold on to that third place, but Usama Nani trying to go to the inside of Merle, and he spun himself round. That is not an incident he would have wanted to see. Getting a little bit aggressive, a little bit desperate to get past, and that has cost him the fight for that third spot. But yeah, we're going to end the first lap now, and Martin Vasily in that lead. We've got two DNFs coming your way, and it's going to be Christoph Verstreppen and Peter Varga and that is not ideal for either of those. And we've got 4 cars that have not gridded and will not take the race. That will be Taylor, Navarro, Sunyaev and Wilkinson. Unfortunate then to see those 4 not racing, but that still means we have 28 cars on the circuit. And we are watching on with Filip Brescia and Kasperzic. This is for the lead of the LMGT3 class. What can Kasperzic do in this first sector? They are coming down. You can see them attacking the rumble strips. That's why the camera's shaking. And that's one of my favourite camera angles in all of racing, as Kasperzic is remaining in behind of Brescia for the time being and trying to seek an opportunity maybe around the outside line, but just running a little bit wide from Filip Brescia. That has allowed him to do that. I believe we get the opportunity to have a look at a race replay and see what happened to Peter Varga off of the race start, as well, we will be seeing it courtesy of our broadcaster Ted Edwards, who's bringing you the cameras here today, as well, we've got a few minutes completed in this race session. Varga, the first of the hypercars, who's going to be out of this session, and it does just look like he's had some sort of technical failure, as well, I mean, he's come straight into the pit lane, he's come straight out of the pit lane, and he's gone straight on into the gravel. So Peter Varga struggling to get his race underway. It looks like actually it might be something to do with his steering wheel, not taking any sort of indication through those couple of, because it's got a little bit of a mini chicane to slow them down. But yeah, Peter Varga just heading through the pit lane, hoping that he can get his problems sorted, but no, he can't. We'll have a look at what Christopher Streppen did, the man who was in who is now in 33rd place, and that's going to be a big incident, and that's, well, that's a slightly more dramatic DNF than Varga's one, but Christopher Streppen is going to find himself out of the race on lap 1. Just lost it on the grass or the curbing. Something like that unsettled his car, and Christopher Streppen decided to DNF from the race. Huge damage surely taken on that GT3, and well, he's just, yeah, he slid on that curbing, tried to put the power down while fully 4 wheels on it, and that sees the end of the Belgians' race.
I know how that feels. I've certainly done the exact same thing, except for in a hypercar, but fortunately, I got away with it. It was 4 hours into a 6-hour race. Thankfully, I didn't ruin it for my team. I did see what was interesting with Peter Varga at the very beginning. Oh, Kanani just getting punted around just a tad bit. Or sorry, not punted. He got loose in the rear, which, yep, locks the rear there. Easy, so unbelievably easy to do. But yeah, I think Vargo, I saw briefly on the formation lap, he ended up in the grass behind the GT3 field before the race actually got underway, which was definitely a bit interesting. And I see a message has just gotten forwarded into our chat, and it said that, yeah, definitely a hardware issue. Force feedback was gone on the formation, and I believe his brakes were only working at 30%. So not ideal behind the wheel of a race car. Definitely difficult to see, as we see Kevin Boss going ahead and sending it up the inside just a little bit in the final corner. A brave move to do. That BMW, though, quick in a straight line, as the Mercedes doesn't quite have the top speed, doesn't quite have the lack of drag that BMW does. Kevin Boss tucking in behind as they're rolling towards turn 1. Will Boss jump out just a little bit? He will. He's going to try to be later on the brakes. He does brake late. Will he make the corner, though? That's very deep, but he manages to keep it on circuit-ish, but doesn't end up keeping that position. Cormac Malloy and the skull and bones Rexy looming in the mirrors, thinking that if this fight goes on long enough between the two of them, that it might become a 4 or 5-way fight between these drivers.
Yeah, and it certainly looks like that may well be brewing for this for these positions further down. In fact, this is all a fight over 24th overall spot, and well, that's not going to be great. Kevin Boss having an issue, and well, that's going to be him dropped out of this fight. Unfortunate then for the Dutchman. But yeah, he's not going to get the chance to fight with the Whittles here today. And yeah, he's going to drop off the back of them unless he's able somehow to make his way back in. And well, we will be seeing what he's going to be able to do later on, as he does remain in this race And, well, he's going to continue on strong. He's not dropped too badly. He's not, well, he is last in class now, but he's not too far off as, well, Billy Octane, 8th spot at the moment, trying to see what he can do. And, well, some of the cars have decided to take harder compounds of tyres, most of which on the front left. And that's just because of some of the very difficult corners around this racetrack. It's going to be the corners 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, that little segment is going to be very difficult for them to approach. And so some of them have decided to opted for, including Martin Vaseli, all of the left-hand side is hard compound tyres. That's going to be Martin Vaseli, it's going to be Ryan Gill, and that's going to be Jack McDonough, all with those hards on one side of the tyres. And that just creates an interesting strategy, as it's actually only the front left, not the entire left side of the car. It's an interesting strategy to go for, where well, everybody else just gone on the plain old medium tyres. They're going to watch their tyres wear at different levels, but those hards could level it out.
Yeah, it's something that I'm familiar with seeing around Fuji. It's the big corner for that front left tire is the turn 4, turn 5 of 100R, where if you're not careful, you're going to torch that tire. You're going to bring it up to well over operating temperature, and running that hard sort of gives you that nice cushion of, hey, maybe I don't need to think about my tires hard enough. I can just focus on pushing the car. It seems to work better in some cars and for some drivers than others, and we'll see as this race goes out whether that with running the hard front left, maybe you won't need to change tires at the pit stop. But that is then, and now we are on board with Usama Kanani as he's chasing down that beautiful pastel blue Aston Martin Valkyrie of Ryan Gill.
He certainly is trying to catch up to Ryan Gill, of course, who was on those tyres that are front left being hard, and everything else being medium. It does have benefits, it does have drawbacks, but one of the drawbacks being that he's going to have to just warm up that tyre a little bit more manually. Usama Nani trying to fight his way back up the field. He's dropped 4 positions off of the start, and he is the biggest loser in the hypercar class so far, as Vaseli and Van Driesch have both gained 1, as has Curtin, and Van der Weyken and Merle have dropped 1 and 2 respectively. Marko Badowski has climbed 2. Octane and Gill have both climbed 1. That is at the expense of Usama Nani. Mares behind him has gained 2. Parters has not gained any, and then McDonough and Malcolm have gained 1 each because of course Peter Vargas DNF. Usama Nani looking to the inside line of the first corner. Is he going to be able to get close enough? He's going to have a look, but he's not quite close enough to make it a realistic opportunity. Is he going to get the exit? No, he's not, simply because he set himself up for that first corner, but he didn't set himself up for the exit. This is where you have to be a very, very measured driver. This is where mentality comes into it. If you have the mentality of needing to get past desperately straight away, that can cost you, and that's cost Usama Nani in the first corner. If he can set himself up well, brake early into this corner potentially, and then on the exit throw himself out of it, and maybe look for a switch back on Ryan Gill, then he can take his opportunity and make his way up. But at the moment, it's I think the Peugeot's not quite settled, wants to make his way through nice and quickly, and he's on the inside line of Gill now. And I think Gill deciding that that's not going to be his fight, because he thinks that Nani is going to try and outbrake himself, but he hasn't. Nani has managed to get the car stopped well, and Ryan Gill drops to 10th place. Nani sets his sights on Octane.
Yeah, that was a mighty send, a move that I've thought about, a move that I've seen, but to execute it that well and manage to stay within track limits and stay ahead of that car that you just overtook, mighty impressive. Great send on Ryan Gill there. I'm sure he's gonna put his foot down a little extra hard to try to get that position back. But Brescia, as we've seen, has actually lost the lead in that mighty Lexus RCF to Maciej Kasperczyk, who, I mean, clearly is getting very comfortable on this sim, getting very comfortable behind the wheel of a lot of different cars. Won last week at Monza, won this Wednesday in the prototype series that we are hosting, and is currently leading this race. But Philip Brescia obviously not taking that position lying down, honing in on the rear of that BMW, but the Lexus has a lot of work to do to get that move done. It can't reasonably be done at turn 1 unless the final corner of turn 15 is done perfectly. That BMW is a little bit too fast in a straight line. It's almost like what we just saw between Gill and Nani, where the Valkyrie, even in the tow, the Peugeot didn't have enough to close up for turn one. But we'll see. They are winding their way towards that final corner, the Panasonic corner, and Philip Reycha actually maintaining a really light, really low gap to the car ahead, but I don't think it's close enough. That BMW roaring away got the perfect exit done by Mathieu there, but Philip Reycha, it's not over until it's over for that driver. For either of these drivers, they're going to fight tooth and nail for this race victory.
They certainly are. Everybody desperately fighting out at the moment, and well, at the moment, just some surprising drivers having a fight exactly where you wouldn't quite expect them, and this is going to be one of them. James Cowley in the Lamborghini Huracan GT3 is on that podium, is in third place, and he's doing very, very well at the moment in the LMGT3s. Speaking of the podium, and the positions have changed in the hypercars. Hugo Merle has made his way past Dino Van Driesch as, well, that's going to be the car through on James Cowley, and that's going to be the expected outside line. Cowley maybe taking the inside line to try and avoid the cars that are coming through as they now try to scythe their way through the LMGT3 field. We could be seeing potentially incidents occurring, hopefully not, of course, but when some of these LMGT3s can get a bit unpredictable, they can get a bit nervous. When some of the hypercars can get a bit greedy, want to get through without losing much time, that is when they can really struggle. The first couple have made their way through on the leader, or are making their way through on the leader, Philip Brescia, and it's going to be Maciej Kasperzic in the lead of that LMGT3 class now. They're going to make their way through. One is gone through, another one is looking to make his way through, and they're having to take the long ways round at the moment, though. Kasperzic is going to be a thorn in the side of Zeno Van Driesch, who ends up making his way through nice and quickly. Second, third, and fourth split by just over a second. It's going to be 1.2 between those three as we're riding on board with Billy Octane, one of those hypercars trying to chase through and trying to overtake other cars, and that's exactly how you need to do it. Just down the main straight, nice and simple. They stay on the racing line, you go off, and speaking of going off, that is going to be Louis Curtin, so far off of the circuit in the first corner. That's unfortunate for him, and now he's lost a lot of time. Billy Octane still in that ninth spot at the moment, and well, he's made his way through a couple of the lap cars. This is exactly what you need to do, as he's not going to be losing any time here. If somebody ahead has some problems, he can gain up. If he has some problems, then Ryan Gill can close right in on the back of him, and he's going to have maybe a little bit of a small problem, tap onto the grass, but he's managed to survive fine. And Octane continues. We've got 1 hour and 5 minutes left in this session, 15 minutes gone, and it's going to be Martin Basaly trying to stretch out a lead currently. That's 2 seconds in that class, and Kasperzic is currently the leader of the LMGT3 class. No, he's not. Philip Brescia is going to be in second place of that one, as it's just cycling through. You can only see the leader of the hypercars at the moment. Kasperzic finds himself in the lead of that one, 1.6 ahead of Brescia in that second place, as Billy Octane losing a bit of time behind the GT3s, flashing them, telling them to be predictable, get out of the way so I can continue my fight.
I don't know if that was a GT3 car of Mathiej Kasperzic not being predictable. I think that was just an unfortunate place to catch an LMGT3 car, as Mathiej actually goes very wide on the final corner. Don't think that's the ideal line, but it is super tough. It's tough enough in Sector 3 for these Valkyries. They are not well suited for low speed in the slightest. It's difficult enough just getting them through chasing another hypercar. It's a whole nother beast when there is an LMGT3 in between you and who you are chasing. Right now we see Martin Mers being chased by Irijus Bartas in the Porsche 963, and on the outside of an LMGT3. Fortunately clears that nice and well, that car staying out of the way. It is difficult getting side by side into turn one. The GT3 cars seem to be more comfortable on the brakes, able to, brake a little bit later, get away with some mistakes. Those cars obviously having ABS, while the hypercars don't. We'll see here. Iridus just getting around that Huracan, which is going mighty well, and I know that excites a lot of people. I'm a big fan of the Lamborghini Huracan GT3, and I know Ted Edwards is also a very big fan. He was making some noises earlier in excitement and enjoyment of being on board with that Lamborghini and seeing it go so well. Sector 3 is the make or break for these hypercars as far as getting through traffic. It's all about trying to get through the low speed, but it seems they're doing well. It's going actually quite well for the driver of that Toyota. Maybe a little bit of partnership between the Lexus and Toyota brand getting to stretch their legs a little bit there as Iridius gets, loses maybe a little bit of time, but manages well. No contact, nothing that you wouldn't want to see between a couple of drivers.
No, just a little bit of argy-bargy, absolutely fine. That's off the circuit for... Whoa, that was very close. And that caused an involuntary yelp from our producer, which is what's got me, Keith Whittle, going off of the circuit, coming back on, potentially in the way of some of the cars. If you weren't aware, then that could have been a problem for the cars that he came on just ahead of and just behind of as well. Keith Whittle just coming on ahead of Richard Whittle, behind Kevin Boss and Cormac Malloy. And, well, that's not ideal for Whittle, and hopefully we'll get the opportunity to see why he was so wide. There we go. Car overtaking through. He tried to keep alongside and tried to find his way around the outside, but it becomes the inside for the next corner. We'll see what Keith Whittle, what the problem was for Keith Whittle, as it might have just been a jink to the inside, trying to cause a mistake. Has the mistake ended up being caused on him? Not out of that corner, and Whittle just being able to hold onto the car here, but a little tiny bit of a tap. Keith Whittle trying to save the car, and he went off of the circuit and came back on right in the path of, that was Kevin Boss, who managed to make his way through into 11th, but a hairy moment there.
Yeah, not a location that you want to be re-entering the circuit, but to be fair, probably wasn't expecting to get tapped on the rear a little bit by that striking lime green and black Lexus. I would like to note, if you hate that livery, I'd like to apologize. I am responsible for the way that car looks. I thought I did okay, but I don't know. You can be the judge. You can tell me whether I did good, whether I did bad. But it is good to see Cormac doing pretty well. But someone else who has sort of reemerged on the scene, you were talking about it earlier, Joseph, but Kevin Boss kind of had it all to do after that spin, but has managed to close up to the fight that he was in at the beginning of this race extremely quickly, already going ahead and clearing a couple of cars. I think Kevin Boss has quite a bit of pace, and he's going to be looking to overtake Malloy and start to chase his buddy Callum Kerrigan.
Yes, looking for moves, looking hopefully to make his way up as the hypercar class fight might be on for the lead. Hugo Merle in behind Martin Vaseli, and we're just about to tick over to less than an hour remaining there. Just about to tick over down at the main straight and down to another lap around the circuit. Vaseli almost getting overtaken. Hugo Merle getting very close in the first corner, but not able to make his way through yet. He's going to save that for the next few corners, but it's very much Hugo Merle in the driving seat here, as he's allowed to put as much pressure on Martin Vaseli as he desires, and I think maybe just try and force a mistake out of the car in front, as well, he's just swinging in between 2 and 6/10 behind Vaseli at the moment, and he's just searching for an opportunity to make it happen, to make his way through, and Hugo Merle is right in behind for the time being. Merle has done a very good job ever since he made his way past Zino van Driesche to find his way back up into the slipstream of Vaseli, and he's now just the 2/10 back and ready for an opportunity to try to fight. The gap between himself and Zino van Driesche is now at 4 seconds, so Merle has not got any pressure from behind. He just now has the opportunity to try and attack Vaseli in that first spot in the lead of the overall race so far. Vaseli might well get held up. Martin Minorek, the car ahead, and he's managed to get through on him as nice and cleanly. Richard Whittle, the next car up, as they've managed to catch the fight that we watched earlier on. The big mistake from Keith Whittle, that is what caused this fight to sort of fizzle out, but at the moment they continue to race on. And Hugo Merle is the only driver in the 29s for his best lap. Everybody else has a best lap into the 30s in the in the hypercars at least. So Hugo Merle very, very quick. We saw that in qualifying, and we're going to see this in race pace as he remains very close to the back of Martin Vesely.
Yeah, very close indeed. Impressive to see them scything through traffic, showing the perfect amount of patience in Sector 3, having to overtake a handful of LMU GT3 cars. I was sort of thinking and maybe hoping that that might have assisted their fight one way or the other. You know, getting caught up behind, really closely behind a GT3 car in the final corner will compromise all of the speed, all of the overspeed that a hypercar might have coming through that corner, and you're going to lose all that speed down the long main straight. But Martin Vesely obviously doing all he needs to do so far, managing to overtake at the very beginning of the race. Didn't start on pole, but qualifying only matters as much as the start of your race, but it does never determine your end of it. Martin Vesely stretching his legs just a little bit in this lap, getting that gap up to closer to 5.5, 6 tenths here, depending on where this GT3 car is. Nope, not an issue at all. Just going to take the corner normally, slip by on that main straight. But Hugo Merrill actually managed to get a better exit, closing very quickly. There might be a little bit of a move coming up here. We'll see if Martin Vesely decides to go defensive at all. He does do. Hugo Merrill sliding back to the inside. It's going to be on the brakes now. Martin Vesely doing what he needs to do, sort of parking it just a bit on the apex there, keeping that Ferrari ahead of that Porsche. As now they move on. Sector 1, very difficult to get any sort of moves done here. Turn 3, not doing there. Then they're going to go into the 100R corner. If anyone tries to go around the outside here, that'd be mega. But the hairpin up coming next is a great overtaking opportunity if you manage to get any kind of overlap. But not this time. Not now. Not between these two drivers. I see some GT3s looming in the front of this pack. I think this might catch both of these drivers out just a tiny bit as they're getting ready to enter Sector 3. This fight heating up. Hugo Merrill's getting right on the rear of Martin Vesely. And I think this fight is only just beginning, Joseph.
Certainly is. With 56 minutes left in the session, that allows for opportunities for slight mistakes to be caught out, or slight drivers to be caught out, just like Hugo Merrill is getting stuck in behind Tom Shipston. Wojciech Rebecki is going to let Martin Vesely go very quickly, but that's 2 corners when there's been 1 car in between Vesely and Merles, and that's given him a little bit of breathing room. 1.3 is the gap as they head down the main straight, but of course that Porsche very quick in a straight line and will close that down to less than a second once again. But he's going to have to do a little bit of that work to make his way back into the slipstream, make his way back into contention, and try to fight his way into the race as the race for the lead. Very, very close to making his way back into it. And that main straight does seem to be the prime ample opportunity. These two, in the meantime of getting through on all of these cars, have been caught up by Zino van Driesch, who's only 3 seconds off of the lead and only 2 seconds off of Hugo Merrill at the moment. And yeah, he's just, I mean, he's ready to pounce on any mistakes, if any mistakes are of course made. At the moment they have not been, but that is a huge, huge deficit that Zino van Driesch has been able to overturn.
Yeah, he's able to overturn it by another couple of tenths, it seems, already down to 2.3 seconds from where it was at 3, but now we're on board with Klaus Nyring in the leading Aston Martin Valkyrie. These cars obviously struggling a bit more than they did last week. Last week they went extremely well, those that finished. It was a pretty high attrition rate race last week, not seeming that in the very beginning we lost a handful of cars, but good to see most drivers finding their groove now as Klaus Nyring wrestles this Valkyrie through Sector 3. You can see putting on all the steering lock that is available, just trying to get it through, get it back onto this straight, just sort of managing that understeer there, but winding up the glorious V12 that is in this race car down the main straight. A beautiful machine, a beautiful sounding machine. Definitely not making it clear which hypercar is my favorite here.
No, just keeping it under wraps, keeping it very, very vague. I think I'm a big fan of... that's a big slide for Klaus Nyring. He's managed to hold it. That's a very, very good save. And, wow, that would have been A very, very nervy moment for Klaus Nyring there. That car probably no longer green, but he's just getting it a bit green again as he goes over the grass and continues on. But a very nervy moment for Klaus Nyring in that 7th spot at the moment, and that would have been a, that would have been a very difficult moment to comprehend for himself. But it's also a moment he has to put out of his mind now. 7th spot, chasing down the cars ahead to lap them again, and only 2.7 behind Marko Badowski, but with only 1.9 behind to Usman Nani, who could be fighting his way further back up the field as Martin Mars and Partez are going to go side by side as they head through the next few corners. Martin Mars just managing to keep ahead, but a wheel kept in for Partez has allowed him to take the inside line, and he actually gets overtaken by Mares, and Martin Mares is up into 11th spot, but Partez is going to try and fight back. He's going to hold that inside line, but he's going to back out of it last minute, but he's going to go for it last minute. No, he can't decide, and he goes for it on the exit eventually, but the chicane has allowed Martin Mares to stay ahead, and the inside line now beckons. Can Irash Partez take it? No, he can't. He remains in behind. Martin holds on.
Holds on just barely. That Toyota is another hypercar I'm quite fond of, quite a big fan of. Good to see it, showing its teeth against this Porsche here. But the unfortunate thing for Martin Mares is that Toyota is not quick in a straight line. That is its Achilles heel of this car. It's pretty much great everywhere except for in a straight line, but actually seeming to just fly in comparison to that Porsche. Maybe a bit of setup between the two of them. One might be running less wing than the other, but Martin Mares manages to hold off the Porsche for turn 1, at least on this lap. But hoping for a clean circuit ahead for those drivers. As you see, Cormac Malloy on Callum Kerrigan. I've been seeing this this fight looming for the past couple of laps. They're going to go too wide, a little bit of a check, but coming down now into turn 3, the Coca-Cola corner. Cormac has the overlap if he can keep his car on circuit out of those curves. He does do now into 100R, stretching his legs here, hoping to keep the car as under control as possible, maintaining maximum apex speed, maximum mid-corner speed, but Callum Kerrigan, that Porsche, seeming to be a little bit happier there in that long corner, but the Lexus doing well. Cormac Malloy doing well to stay ahead, but we'll see as they come down to turn 10 to Dunlop corner. Kerrigan goes a bit deep, gets very close. From that camera angle, it looked like it would be impossible for them not to have touched, but it seems that Callum's gotten away with that one. These obviously are 2 RCI staff members. It's actually broadcaster on commentator at the moment, Callum being the commentator, Cormac being the occasional broadcaster. He actually took us through on Wednesday, his first LMU broadcast. I think he did pretty okay, and I think he's doing pretty okay right now in this car. He was complaining after qualifying. He dropped us a message and said, "How do you drive this car?" I immediately sent him the message back, "You are quicker in race," because I race with this guy all the time, and he is significantly quicker in race trim than he is in qualifying. As you can see, already done and dusted Callum Kerrigan just a bit on this last lap, a lot through sector 3. That Lexus doing extremely well through there, it seems to be. But the braking zone, I mean, the Porsche does slow down extremely well, but doesn't seem to close up at all on Cormac Malloy this time round.
No, does not at the moment, and some of these fights are getting very, very tasty. Here's the one for the lead of the hypercars. Martin Vasily closed in. This is the closest that Hugo Merle has been, and he takes the outside line. Dares Martin Vasily to go for the inside. They will cut across the pit line as they head into the first corner. Vasily brakes late. Merle brakes later, but the turning speed of the Vasily means that he's able to stay ahead, and he holds firm in the lead for the moment. But Hugo Merle starts to really pressure the leader, and this is very much his opportunity to try and fight. The hypercar energy shows that Merle a lot less than anybody else, 18% for himself, and well, that's almost half of what Vasily has at the moment, 37 to 18, and everybody else in and around 30s, 40s, something like that. Something tells me that that's a little bit fishy, not quite right. on that car. But I mean, Hugo Merl at the moment, if he's managed to do that, that's a sensational job. And well, he's going to continue to fight with Vesely.
And he's doing so here, getting caught up behind this BMW GT3 car. Both drivers sort of trying to find their best way through as Hugo Merrill manages to find the better line between the two. They manage to close right up on each other into the final corner. I think knowing how much quicker that Porsche can be in a straight line, we might be in for a proper fight into turn one. My theory about the energy level is that Hugo Merrill was maybe hoping to run less fuel, stay ahead of the pack, maybe show up a gap a little bit before that initial fuel stop. Is Hugo Merrill trying around the outside again in turn one? This is the furthest ahead he's been. If he gets it well on the brakes, he might be able to hang it around the outside. But that Ferrari is so good into turn one. Hugo Merrill not able to do it this time around. Super close coming down to turn three, but naturally just has to feed back in behind the other hypercar, knowing that this isn't the moment. Both cars going to go around the outside of that Mercedes there, doing it cleanly. Both cars in a clean circuit at the moment, but with multi-class racing, that can all change in a second as we see that Porsche, that skull and crossbones, the Halloweeny Porsche looms in ahead of them. Both cars wanting to flash their lights. See, well, Martin Vesely getting around the Porsche around the outside. Martin Mears doing the same in the braking zone. Impressive to clear the two of them. There's neck and neck. It doesn't seem to be that either one is flustered by this traffic at all. Kevin Boss, the next car for them to clear. I think both are going to elect to go around the outside. Kevin Boss probably just crossing his fingers, praying that he doesn't get knocked into and he doesn't knock into either one of these cars. Hugo Merrill going over that exit curb and losing a lot of time. I think his turn one dreams for this lap yet again might be in just a little bit of shambles.
Yeah, certainly may well be. Hugo Merl unfortunate there to drop down once again, and it's just about having that cutting edge at the moment. Merl has lacked that cutting edge, and I think he just needs to sharpen up a bit before he continues that fight and continues to try to fight his way through this field. We're watching on board with Iridaios Partes, who's chasing Martin Mears still. And this is for 11th place. He had an opportunity a couple of laps ago that he created for himself. He wasn't able to execute it on that occasion, but this time he might get the chance to find his way through. Just taking alternate lines, trying to open up the corner. Starts out wide and end up wide as well with a very, very tight apex. That's the aim for him as he tries to edge out those extra tenths of a second, and he's going to get those extra tenths of a second towards the end of this straight. But it does look at the moment like Martin Mears is very, very quick in a straight line. And despite that slipstream that Iridaios Partes has at the moment, Mears is just able to hold it down the straight in a straight line. And that is a huge benefit.
I can't believe I'm just floored by the pace of that Toyota in a straight line. I could have sworn, and I know for a fact, that we were getting absolutely leapt on straights by Porsches, by honestly everything in the field. But clearly, Martin Mears has found the ideal setup for this circuit, and it is interesting seeing how mighty Hugo Merrill's Porsche is in a straight line versus some of the others in the field. Now we're on board with Milan van der Weyken, Ferrari on Ferrari. We're on board with Marco Badowski, Milan van der Weyken being the car ahead. And it's going to be another turn one brawl. Milan van der Weyken sticks to his inside line. Marco Badowski thinking maybe he can try it around the outside. They go through the corner. Yet again, that inside line being so unbelievably strong. I don't know if that's just generally, but especially in these Ferrari 599Ps or 499Ps, excuse me. But it's super impressive to see. No mistakes really in the braking zone. I think all we saw was maybe a very minor lockup for our race leader Vesely, as Badowski going a bit wide, maybe not the preferred line through there. But we go back now to the GT3 field, as we see Ted is as perplexed as I now am that Philip Breccia is now in 4th place. This was our leading car at the beginning of the race, our car that started out on the pole and has dropped back in a fashion that's a bit surprising. I mean, that's a handful of seconds, 5 to 6 seconds lost from behind Maciej Kasperczyk. As you can see, super close here. And maybe there might have been a mistake from one or both of them. I think we'll see. Maybe it was in sector three. Maybe Philip Racia got on the curb a bit too much. Yep, that would do that. So yeah, that's apex there. Maybe took a little bit too much. Took a bit too much. Then got a bit greedy on the throttle and spins it around. A little bit of a tap in the wall. Hopefully not too much damage. And fortunately, Philip Racia able to feed back in onto the circuit, not losing as much time as he possibly could, but now chasing down Townsend ahead, wanting to get back towards the top of this field, but a challenge for sure. I mean, Kevin Boss, we saw him shake off his spin, get back to where he was, and maybe Philip Racia also has it in him to do the same thing.
Yeah, Osama Nani trying to recover as well from the race start that he had. And, well, he's in 8th place at the moment, but hasn't gained on Klaus Naring like he would have liked to. But Philip Brescia, I think he has the pace to, but he's lost a lot of time in doing that. And I think there might be some damage on that car, surely, that is debilitating some of the corners, as or some of his cornering speed, as that's about 12 seconds that he is now behind Kasperzic, the race leader. And he's got a bit of damage on the front of that car, which is not going to be ideal come the end of the race. It's not going to be ideal at any point in the race, in fact. And he's going to now try and chase down Townsend. Hopefully, he's going to be able to get the chance to make his way past Matt Townsend and up into that 3rd spot, as we are going to be having a move potentially for the lead. Martin Vesely and Hugo Merles went side by side into the first corner, but they remained in position in the end. But Merles still looking for moves, but still looking at Townsend versus Brescia. And, well, Brescia not getting close enough yet, but it doesn't feel like he's really getting close enough anywhere.
It is interesting. The more I think about it, I mean, Martin Vesely running greater amounts of fuel and also that hard front left tire that we were talking about at the beginning of the race. So, I mean, naturally that Porsche isn't a quicker configuration as far as it's on a softer compound everywhere and also on a lower fuel run. So whether this is the out and out pace of Martin Vesely, whether it's the out and out pace of the Ferrari, and what is most likely, it's just a sheer mixture of both. These two world-class drivers giving it their all. Hugo Merrill getting close to where he wants to, where he has to enter the pits for his fuel stop. I think he decided at the beginning of this race, maybe starting on the pole, it was best to go 50-50 as far as to do 50% of the race in one stint and do 50% of the race at the other, but getting a bit caught out by the GT3 traffic, not being as close as we've seen him before. But I can only imagine the frustration of Hugo Merrill being side by side going into turn one, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 times at this point, but not being able to get the move done. I think I just heard a little bit of a squeak, a little bit of a lockup from Martin Vesely. And I think whether it's that hard front left that's maybe catching him out on the brake pedal just a little bit, or it's trying to brake as late as possible. Neither one of these drivers having made any meaningful mistakes in this race so far, keeping the fight tight, keeping the fight aggressive at the front of this field.
Yeah, keeping it very, very aggressive at this point, and Hugo Merle really trying to take every single opportunity that he can. 4% of his energy left, though, so he's going to be at a huge disadvantage to Martin Vesely at the moment. And yeah, Vesely is just trying to navigate his way through every single corner. He may well know about Hugo Merle's energy situation. He may well not either. But either way, he's still just fighting this one as if, you know, anything was going to happen. And anything could still happen across the last 40 minutes of this race in the multi-sprint series. And, well, these drivers are doing a very good job at the moment. I'll tell you how they could be doing a better job. They could be using as into the pit lane comes Hugo Merle, and that is going to be the moment that this race could be not necessarily won or lost, but that could be a moment that really throws this race into the mix as he tries to save himself. Yellow flags out on the circuit. Not quite sure where that's going to be. Billy Octane into the wall and almost into the wall again, but able to save it and keep it sorted as the number 33 slammed into the wall, it looks like, and it was directly into the wall as well. So there was something wrong with the number 33 as we'll watch on with him as he heads through the corners as he gets through on a GT3 car. What happens here is that a lockup for the 33. He's able to hold on to it here, but it may well not be here.
13 again.
The opportunity to do it. It certainly is, and this time he's. It looks like he may well be. Is he going to go round? He is, and that is going to be not quite into the wall. So something else may well have happened to Billy Octane at some point. He threw himself into one of the walls. I'm not sure it was that wall or a different wall, but yeah, there we go. He's into the wall now. And it's desynced, Billy Octane able to let it go, and that may well be the reason why we saw Billy Octane doing that, going for a little Michael Jackson slide into the wall. But yeah, Billy Octane at the moment looking all right and looking to hopefully recover from that position as Hugo Merle back out onto the circuit in 13th spot.
Yeah, he's back onto the circuit, and just so everybody's aware, I know it still says he has 2% energy. Once he clears the first sector, that will begin to update. I promise you, he did not go into the pits and not take any energy. That would have been a ruinous decision. Hugo Merle's maybe on some colder tires. Seemed like a little bit of a slide there through 100R. And some more understeer there. 64%, hoping that that's the right number, the perfect number to keep this car as its lightest, and hoping to get these possibly cold tires lit back up and racing on the circuit, hoping to do enough maybe in clean air, hoping that the track stays clear enough for Hugo Merle to get an undercut on our still race leader Martin Vaselli.
Yes, hoping so, and well, he's very much pushed in that first stint. The second stint is going to be a little bit of a weird one for Merle, where he's not going to be wanting to push too hard. He's not going to be wanting to hold back too much. There's a little bit of a middle ground, something along those lines, as we get a great shot of the Coca-Cola barrier on there, one of the sponsors of the Fuji Speedway. And well, we've got a few partners to have a chat about and to thank for, well, bringing the action and making it possible. Of course, some of these drivers will be using some of these products, and I'd imagine it's those who are the quickest out on the circuits who find themselves at the very top. And if you're not at the top, tell you who can help you. Coach Dave from Coach Dave Delta. Faster lap times start with Delta. They provide apps, setups, coaching, podiums, wins for different racing titles, the main ones being the main ones that you'll be seeing here, iRacing, Le Mans Ultimate, of course, the one that we're watching on, and ACC as well. And yeah, it's just, they provide so much to the sim racing community and allow them to improve as well they continue along. And I know there's a lot of drivers that have improved, and it's no doubt thanks to the help of Coach Dave Delta. Could also be down to the help of IMB Racewear. They provide they provide so much racewear, whether it's gloves, shoes, anything that you're looking for. IMB Racewear, almost guaranteed to have it, and they have now official iRacing merch. You can also get yourself some personalised merch as well, so there's so much on offer from IMB Racewear, and I've actually had a look at some of their gloves because I'm in the market for some gloves. If I was in the market for wheels, tell you where I would go. I'd go to Ready Set Sim. You can have a look at other people's sims. You can use the sim builder to try and create your own sim and see what's going to be in your budget, what's going to be potentially out, and what's going to be your dream. And if you want your dream setup, you can have a look at some of the My Sims that you've got on there. And there was one earlier on, the Sim Rig Builder, who is one of the partners for the website itself, Ready Set Sim, and he's got one that is £22,000, and it looks beautiful. You can check it out on My Sim there. Another one of their partners, of course, we're one of them. Another one being the Alpine Sim Racing team, and well, the Alpine have wonderfully partnered with us for the Track Racer Alpine Sim Racing Series. Sign-ups are open there, but not for much longer. They're open until October the 19th, which is Sunday at 11 p.m. That is one of the series we're going to be running here, and that is going to be a very, very exciting one. The top 35 times qualifiers, so you'll be getting the cream of the crop racing around some of the circuits that you'll be watching on with, as Hugo Merl has gone for a spin on the circuit. And just taking away from the spot, just have a look at Merl. He's gone round as he set 2 purple sectors, so he was looking very, very good. That has cost him so much time, and that may well have cost the undercut for the car that is currently sitting in 12th place. That is a huge, huge moment for Hugo Merl, and we'll get the opportunity to have a look at a replay and see what happened to the Porsche as he headed through. And I think it may well be the same corner, claiming another victim, not sure, just saw that he went round. And well, Hugo Merl just on the inside of one of the GT3s, making his way through. And Merl, does he have a problem in the same corner that most have here today? It just looks as though, well, it looks as though he just, whoa, that's going to be turning while trying to brake, and that's really cost him so much as he's trying to very much push in that Porsche, and that is exactly what has cost him. We'll watch an onboard then of exactly what happened, just looking like he's cycling through the gears, cycling through the motions, and just taking too much speed onto the curbing, Hugo Merl round, and that has cost his undercut dearly, and we'll see where he comes out in relation to everybody else in the field, especially Martin Vasily, the car in the lead of the race. Having a look at some of the other championships we've got here on RCI, and we've got the iRacing LMP3 and GT4 at Catalonia. That's going to be on October 25th, so in just over a week's time. And the iRacing Suzuka 3 hours, that's going to be a week after that, November the 1st. We have 3 championships running at the moment that have sign-ups closed, but you can, of course, watch all of them on RCI TV. We are halfway through the Audi Academy season on Mondays, and you can catch the action. You can catch back up with the action with me and Jack there from last time, and hopefully we'll be both in the box next Monday for round number 4. Round number 4 also of this season is what you're watching right now. There's 2 more rounds to go after this one, and we'll be getting to the end of it with a great opportunity to see some very good fights for the standings, and also the other championship currently running, and it's the prototype sprint season that kicked off on Wednesday, and Jack can take you through that as well. We're working that man hard. A couple more of our partners to read through up in the top corner that you can see cycling through: the Motorsports UK Esports. We are a recommended partner, and we are proud to say that, and that is just, it's a great honor to see ourselves up with some of the biggest names in sim racing in the UK or around the world. And well, I mean, there's few things that you can't get with one of our partners. Of course, I've talked about IMB Racewear, some of the racewear that these drivers will be wearing. Coach Dave Delta, that'll be taking some of these drivers through, that'll be coaching some of these drivers through, and they will be driving most likely on a Moser wheel, the best wheels on the market, the only wheels I'd recommend at the moment, and they are just so very good. They support 55 force feedback games, and I'm sure more to come, especially with more iRacing titles being released. Of course, the iRacing Arcade coming soon. You've got the NASCAR iRacing race, and well, we'll be seeing lots and lots of titles coming soon. It's a very exciting time for sim racing, and almost every single bundle is on offer. The highest offer is 27%, so if you want any chance to get started with Moser, it's right about now. You can also potentially get some of those games, especially when they release, on Green Man Gaming. You can also get some of them that are out right now, any game pretty much, with a 15% off code if you type in OCT15. That's OCT15 when you're at checkout. If it's gaming, think Green Man Gaming, and if it's LMU, think RCI. If it's iRacing, think RCI, and if it's Assetto Corsa Competizione, think RCI as well. We're watching on board with Martin Vasily as we are here, round number 4 of the multi-sprint series, and he's currently fuel saving, trying to extend this stint long, because I'd gander, he's got no idea what happened to Hugo Merl.
I'm thinking maybe he's able to see the gaps on his relatives. I don't know. I think a car that far back in the pack, being Hugo Merl, he's unable to see him unless he has somebody in his ear. Maybe told him what went on, but definitely doing a bit of LICO, a bit of lift and coast. That can be very, very powerful in these hypercars. In order to, I'm sure he's trying to extend his stint a lap, thinking that might do him the greatest. That might end up with the quickest race time. Martin Vaselli doing better than some of the front runners. Klaus Nyring doing well. I'm actually surprised to see across the board the Valkyries are doing well. Both Ryan Gill and Billy Octane doing well in the Valkyries. Not as thirsty as they are maybe in some rounds as Uridius Partez goes into their pit lane for the time. A brief shot of maybe some grass. Not sure what that was. Very pretty. Very lovely. Love the some of the silly LMU cameras. Ted, I don't blame you. There are some truly shocking. There are some truly shocking cameras in this game, and they'll just kind of sort of come at you out of nowhere. And Joseph, to briefly correct you on some of the championship stuff, signups say that they're closed on some of the series, but they are open for all of our weekly series. This one, the multi-sprint series, they are full on signups, but you can sign into a reserve slot. I can pretty much promise you that there will be room for you. I know because Cormac Malloy was a reserve driver, and he's here racing today. Whether it's a one-off, whether you're interested in doing a one-off, or you want to catch the rest of the series, this man in the the terribly done livery. I can't give myself props for that. I think I did okay for the second try, but I would never give myself props for it. He picked the colors, just making that clear. I did not immediately go for lime green and black. But a great race from him, and it could be a great race for many of you if you decide to sign up in reserve. The Audi Academy, that is also open, does have lots of slots. The grids have sort of started to get a little bit bigger as we've made our way through the championship. Would be great for that grid to include you. Same within the prototype sprint series. Wednesday is definitely a bit of a tough day for a lot of people to get in the rig and do a race, but it was a very fun first round. I think the lead changed hands, 4 times in each class in that race. It may have been a lighter grid, but man, they gave us all the action we could have wanted. But yes, please sign up if you're interested. As we see on board with Tom Shipston, we get an idea that the energy in the GT3 cars are very low to the point where I can pretty much guarantee that Tom Shipston is looking for that pit entry this lap. Let's see if he jinks to the right as the LMGT3 leaders have begun to enter. And yes, Tom Shipston is going to go in this lap. The GT3 cars naturally are much better on fuel, have a larger fuel tank than a lot of the hypercars, and just sort of do better. They have, about 10 to 15 extra minutes of running time compared to those hypercars. So now is when we're going to see that field begin to cycle. And is Zeno Vandrisha managing to make it a reasonable distance on his energy, only getting about 50% before he gets back on the road, as the other Peugeot of Hussam Baknani does the same thing, getting their fuel stop. Those stops they can feel horrifically long, and it is truly terrible hearing all the cars charge by you. But the sobering thought of they have to come in too. They also need fuel, and you just have to, nail your spots, jump in, and jump out. Our current race leader, James Cowley, is going to be in this lap. I can almost guarantee, but Maciej Kasperczyk was our leader, and I think by the time the pit cycles cycle in and out, he will be back at the front of the LMGT3 field.
Yes, he certainly will. I think we'll see where all these drivers stack up as James Cowley, the lead of the LMGT3 class, also dives into the pit lane. We'll see where he is able to stack himself up throughout the remainder of this race. Matt Townsend in as well, and Philip Brescia will then inherit the lead of the race in the LMGT3 class at the very least. And well, this is sort of the opportunity, this is sort of the time where you'd be expecting these cars to dive into the pit lane to get rid of some of their energy. Philip Brescia, though, still a little bit in the tank, and well, he's going to have the opportunity to really push at this point and try to build up a gap. Raphael Huel will inherit second place as Rebecki comes into the pit lane. Roskam and Kasperczyk are going to be fighting, I think, out on the circuit. Kasperczyk, of course, was the leader of the class, but at the moment is currently trying to fight his way back through, as he's now up to 4th place after he came into the pits and watched the other cars come in to the pit lane. Brescia, Huel and Roskam still to dive in, and Kasprzic can go to the end of the race now. 23 minutes left, and this appears to be where the biggest pit window is open, and everyone taking it in the LMGC3s.
Everyone taking their time, going as tentatively as they can. Fuji's one of those, like many pit entries, where you can get real greedy on that. You see that 60 board and you say, no, I can push my braking point. I can push it a little bit later. But a stop and go penalty would be waiting for you if you speed in that pit lane. Brescia actually managing to get a little bit wiggly there on the exit of the final corner. As we're now seeing pit lane, that spooky Halloweeny Rexy livery. One of my favorites of the IMSA season that has came and went, just ended a couple weeks ago. But as you saw, that car was pointing out slightly away from the back of that Valkyrie. That's because LMU is unique in the fact that there is a collision in the pit lane. And especially when this game was sort of first new in people's minds and on first races a lot, I know I did it myself, as that's one of those times where, it could have gotten a little close, definitely a little bit too close. There are no systems in to sort of let you know if you're clear or not. You kind of just mash the throttle and hope that there's nobody to run into. But that can end up in tragedy sometimes. But I know in my first race, I piled straight into the back of another car that was sitting there, as Martin Vaselli, our overall race leader in the hypercar category, goes in for their stop. This is when we're going to see whether that undercut for our Porsche driver, whose name is completely losing me, I apologize. But this is when we'll see if that undercut is doable. Thank you, Ted. You saved my life. Hugo Merrill, how could we forget if that undercut was possible? There was that spin during the early laps, and Hugo Merrill currently getting a little bit frustrated behind the back marker of Matt Malcolm there in that Valkyrie. But we'll see Hugo Merrill wanting to get through, end this lap as fast as possible, hoping to at least climb back. As you see, Martin Vaselli already out of pit lane, and that's going to be a really sizable gap between those two drivers. Hopefully, possibly Hugo Merrill can maybe climb up ahead of Van der Weken or Ryan Gill and Billy Octane. They seem to be cycling out of the pit lane. Klaus Nyring is out of the pits now, and I think those will sort of begin to update, but I think they've solidified Hugo Merrill. His best that his undercut could get him with some of those mistakes is only fourth, which 20 minutes to go. It's still all to play for in the top, I'd say top two. I think Martin Vaselli has done everything that needed to be done. And if there are no mistakes, as you see a Peugeot there backwards, that was Zino Vandrisha, who got really very out of shape coming into the hairpin. Impressed to see him not clattered into the wall there. But Zino Vandrisha, as I talk about the top, the second and third slots being there to play for, Hugo Merrill managing to get that spot without too much trouble, as we're going to see a replay for what happened there. Maybe a repeat of what we saw early in the race, a hypercar getting on the grass, maybe having a bit of a spin, as we'll see chasing. That's Klaus Nyring just ahead. These two were very close coming out of the pits. Very much pushing to try to close that gap. Oh, gets caught out by the slowness of the Valkyrie. And there was maybe a little bit of a touch or just a panic on the brake, but a mighty save from Zino Vandrisha. Well done to not pile into the back of Klaus Nyring. But yeah, that's one of those corners where especially Klaus Nyring's on cold tires, he is not going to be up to pace. You can see he's got a lot more speed, gets too close, a little bit of a touch there. But look at that save, managing to keep it out of the wall. So it's not over for Zino Vandrisha, but maybe Hugo Merrill's race just got a little bit more smiles behind the wheel of that car.
Yeah, you'd imagine he will, and he'll be fighting with Well, he'll be fighting with Klaus Nyring in a second, and we'll see what Hugo Merl is going to be able to do as Zeno van Driesch, 4th place, slotting into where you'll be seeing him earlier on. Merl is looking for an opportunity, sensing that he has a chance of making his way through. He's gone past on Thibaut Roskam and looks to try and go through on Klaus, but can't quite do so. And on the exit, he looks so much quicker than Klaus Nyring. It's almost unbelievable how much quicker he is looking at the moment through those corners. But down the straights is where his race is really going to be defined. It's been good so far on the back of Vasily. Can he set himself up for it on the back of Nyring? Of course, it's very difficult to overtake the Aston Martin, but he's going to try anyway on the inside line. He's going to pull alongside. Nyring has the outside, and it's going to be a straight drag race towards the first corner on this circuit. Hugo Merl is going to have the inside line into turn 1. Klaus Nyring is going to have the outside. They might not even need it, but Nyring, with the straight line speed down the main straight, has managed to pull himself right back alongside, and they are neck and neck as they cross the line. Less than a tenth of a second split each other, and Hugo Merl has the inside line and has P2.
That was, I really enjoyed seeing, because Hugo Merl's that Porsche has been so quick in a straight line. The Valkyrie's famous for being in a straight line, but having that inside line, going ahead, having the commitment to do the overtake or start the overtake in turn 15 did Hugo Merl's a lot of favors there. I think he maybe was aware that in the slipstream, stuck in behind that Valkyrie, it wouldn't have been enough. Klaus Nyring trying his absolute best. But, I mean, we know Merl has the pace. He's shown it. He still has the fastest lap of this race. He's still the only one in those 29s. Actually, sorry, he's the second person. There's another driver in the 29s. Louis Curtin has actually managed to do a 29.9 some point in this race, but Hugo Merl does have that fastest lap. No, he's got that pace, and already the gap to Vasily, I think it's just dropped a bit. It seems to do that when drivers are on slightly different laps. It will probably update momentarily when Hugo Merl crossed the line, but it seemed like he had closed that gap by about 3 seconds that lap. So perhaps I spoke too soon when I said that, you know, the fight for first place may not have been on the cards for Hugo Merl, but it would be great to see him prove me wrong, as the LMGT3 field is really seeming to spread just a little bit. There's a couple of fights here and there in the midfield, but Maciej Kasprzyk really putting his foot all the way to the floor behind the wheel of his BMW M4 G3, as Tom Shipston is attempting to go around the outside. That was one of the fights I saw. That's Thibaut Roskam on the inside. That Huracan getting it much cleaner on the brakes, but Shipston with that inside line keeps his nose in. It's going to be a bit of a drag race down to the Coca-Cola corner, but I think Shipston has this one wrapped up for now. Actually, well, Roskam maybe thought about keeping his nose in there. Very dangerous place to do that. And it's an easy way to end up spinning yourself or your rival. But Shipston getting that one done cleanly. We'll see if Roskam can close that back up as we go throughout this lap. The Huracans have been a bit quiet this race. They've sort of seemed to have been generally across this series, and maybe in LMU as a whole, only a handful of drivers picking that Huracan, which is a shame because it is a beauty and it sounds glorious.
It certainly does. There are some beautiful cars out on circuits at the moment. Hypercars generally take my fancy, although the GT3s can be beautiful as well, as the Huracan is one of those. And I think it's just, there's something special about a GT3. You know, you might be seeing it on a road, but most of the time you'll be seeing it on a racetrack just because of the expense that it would be. But at the moment, these cars is very beautiful, and that is one of the reasons that racing has attracted me. Really, it's just the cars themselves. They are so good looking. And I know that I remember a couple of months ago I was doing commentary with my girlfriend of all people, and we were doing it on F1. She was just desperate to see the safety car when it came out, because that's one of the GT3s. That's the Aston Martin, and it's just so good looking. And well, that's just one of those things, it's just one of those special things about racing that you don't get about anything else. The Mercedes that we're watching with Tom Shipton, one of the most beautiful of the GT3s, Cormac Malloy in the Lexus. I think there's a few drivers who've decided to take the Lexus here today. And it's a very, very different car normally, or what I've seen in the past. And what I saw pretty much since release was the Aston Martin GT3 was absolutely unbelievable. Everything looks a little bit balanced now, and for that exact reason, that is why we're seeing a BMW leading this race in this class. And we'll be seeing a move here potentially. Klaus Nyring is going to be fighting with Zino van Driesch for that third place. He's third, and Van Driesch is fourth. Curtin trying to get himself involved in that fifth spot. Louis Curtin, that is, chasing in behind, but he's very much the underdog in this story as Klaus Nyring defends that third place as they cross the line for the 44th time. Klaus Nyring now pulling to the inside line. Zino van Driesch will take the outside, will break later, but it's the inside line for Nyring, and he's going to be able to come back on exit. This is going to frustrate Curtin because he can see an opportunity somewhere. He just needs to back one of the drivers. Who do you back? Do you back Van Driesch or Nyring? He's going to back Nyring, and he's going to, slot himself on the inside line once again. They remain in a scrap. Curtin is going to get around the outside of Nyring now, who had a poor exit out of the corner, and Van Driesch and Curtin make their way through on the Aston Martin.
I almost popped a blood vessel there. I was trying to keep myself quiet, trying not to interrupt you, holding my breath. That could have ended so poorly for any of those drivers, but it's just another example of how world-class these people is. Klaus Nyring fighting back in the braking zone, trying to get the inside, keeping his nose in, still just in. Louis Curtin actually ending up, I think, having a bit more confidence in the rear and on the power in that Ferrari, but Klaus Nyring not fighting back. Very well done by Zino van Driesch. That might be the first time that we've seen so far. No, Klaus Nyring, can he hold it? Oh, he cannot hold it. Thought he could keep it out of the wall there, but Klaus Nyring pushing that, it could be 1% too far. It could be 1 meter too early on power. It's racing is fine margins. It's all about fine margins, and it's all about trying to control a machine that is not necessarily designed, well, it is designed for this, but not necessarily designed to be quick in all categories, as we see that move there around the outside of 100R, which was very, very impressive to be seen there. But Klaus Nyring trying to fight back in the braking zone, as we just saw, keeping his nose in. They're rolling up towards that devilish turn 13. Manages to get through that cleanly, maybe losing a bit of time, frustrated, just like, all right, I can come back, and just losing it a bit in the rear. I think it's narrowing that line just too much and getting caught on that wall. So Nyring took what was a less than ideal situation and made it a lot less ideal by getting caught up in that wall. I think Nyring already had a bit of a moment in the wall. As you can see, the front of his Valkyrie is a bit crumpled, but Ryan Gill now in one of the other Valkyries looming in the back of this fight. He may have seen the mistake from Nyring. No, speaking of Valkyries, Matt Malcolm lacking a rear wing. Oh, those are not bollards you can go through. I think Matt Malcolm thinking that those may have been similar to those styrofoam boards you see in the likes of ACC. Oh, it's bad to worse for Matt Malcolm there. Not sure where he lost that rear wing, because when we saw him, that was the Dunlop corner, turn 10, already without it, trying to cut turn 11. We'll see. On board with him. This is through 300R now. Actually, sorry, this is 100R. Clean through there. Everything's looking normal. Everything's looking about as settled as it can be in an Aston Martin Valkyrie. We got Philip Braicha just ahead. In a Lexus, we'll see. Oh no! Oh, that's super not ideal. That looks like a bit of Matt Malcolm got caught out. He decided to take the outside line rather than the inside. Maybe if we can see from the onboard See Philip Rachel just sort of driving around down the middle of the circuit, admittedly. Oh, and has a bit of a jink into the side of Matt Malcolm. Not 100% sure who really was in the wrong there. That was just a classic multi-class kerfuffle. Maybe Philip Rachel not looking. Yeah, I think that sort of answers that, at least as far as I can see. I think Philip Rachel maybe thinking Matt Malcolm was clear and wanted to take back that racing line very aggressively. But that sort of driving up the middle of the circuit is something that Joseph alluded to at the beginning of this race about uh, GT3 cars. Their job is to stay predictable, and that is admittedly not very predictable. Just sort of taking out Matt Malcolm there. Hopefully, he's able to continue this race. See, he is in pit lane. But that was full 90 right on steering damage and no rear wing. Hopefully he gets that repaired and crosses the line, but not something that you want to see ever in a multi-class race, but something that, especially around a circuit like Fuji, tends to happen.
Yeah, it certainly does. Unfortunate there. An unfortunate incident, but I mean, when you've got no rear wing, it's just an incident waiting to happen. Matt Townsend waiting in this fourth spot at the moment to make his way through on James Cowley, and well, the car behind has been lapped, so don't be too worried about them for the moment. And James Cowley now 8/10 in ahead of Townsend, who just appears to be gaining as well, and continues to. And actually, it looks as though Matt Townsend actually initially lost the position. James Cowley was able to take it, and Townsend now looking for the opportunity to try and get back. The reason I say that is because there was a 3-second deficit for Matt Townsend in that final sector, and James Cowley holds on to that position for now. He holds on to third place in that beautiful Lamborghini and hopes to take the Lamborghini onto the podium. The victory looking out of touch with 7 minutes left, and with 18 seconds the difference between himself and the car in the lead. But well, 7 minutes left, it's flown by, and well, it looks as though we are going to be continuing on with Matt Malcolm, who continues on at the back of the hypercar class. He's decided to keep going 2 laps down. Fair play, with 6 minutes 51 left in the session.
Yeah, it takes a lot of, commitment for something like that to happen in your race, something entirely out of your control. Ooh, managing to got a little bit nervous there for him, touching the grass on the inside of 100R, but it takes a lot of commitment to sort of decide after your race is, basically ruined, entirely sort of taken away from you, to decide, you know what, it's okay. If I finish this race, I can still maybe bring some points home, help myself out in the championship. So I applaud that from Matt Malcolm. And Timo Roskam being one of our few but furious Huracan drivers. We've been talking about both of them. And it seems that maybe Townsend, as I'm looking at the timing, is maybe made a bit of a mistake. That gap was coming down rapidly and is now back up to 2.5 tenths. It seems as the clock is winding down, or getting closer to the final 5 minutes of this race. Everyone's races have been semi-decided as far as, who's going to end up where. Fights have not sort of, aren't really existing anywhere on circuit at the moment. I mean, gaps are close. You can see in the LMGT3 field, cars aren't exactly half a lap between each other, but nothing doing at the moment. The hypercar field seeming to be just about a similar fashion as far as gaps between cars. So I guess now is as good of a time as any. Joseph, what do you first of all, what do you think? How do you feel about the season 3 of the multi-sprint series? I know this is your first time joining us. Was it a good introduction?
I mean, of course, I love racing and I love some of these cars, and I think there's some underdog stories that are on play at the moment. James Cowley being one of those, in that third place in that GT3 class in the Lamborghini. But of course, all of these drivers very, very good, and well, that's exactly what I expected. But everybody very, very, very good on expectations. I think there's only been a couple of DNFs, and that was because of lap 1 incidents. Indeed, there has been. Only Christopher Streppen and Peter Varga have not taken to the 50 laps around this circuit that Martin Vesely has. But it's been a very intriguing race. I think there's been, it's one of those races that demonstrates exactly the problem with racing for newbies. One mistake can cost you. That's exactly what got Hugo Merl and Philippe Brescia, though, proving me wrong instantly on that point. He is P2 in that class, despite having one big problem earlier on, and also having an incident with Matt Malcolm. So Brescia himself, and the difference between himself and those who retired on lap 1 is the big difference. There is a penalty on the circuit, and that is going to be the man in 4th place, Louis Curtin, who has picked up a drive-through penalty. That is absolutely huge, and that is ultimately incredibly disappointing for a man who's looking so incredibly good. He was on for 4th spot, but no longer. The drive-through penalty will drop him down a couple of positions. I think he's going to come out fighting with Ryan Gill for 7th spot. And, well, that's going to be very, very ultimately disappointing for his race.
Yeah, and that's by nature of the track limits penalty system that's in LMU. It does operate a bit differently from the likes of iRacing and ACC. As Curtin continues to go around, I believe you have 3 laps to serve that penalty. So electing to keep driving, pretend like everything's okay, and probably pit on the last lap. We'll see if, that seems to be the play. But yeah, the track limits penalty system being a little bit different than the likes of iRacing or ACC, where it's just sort of, iRacing is, if you go off circuit, that's an X. You have a certain number of X's within a race, and you can get X's from off tracks or from contacts as well. And ACC being, if they deem it too much of a track cut, they will take away one of your 3 track limits warnings. LMU, it's depending on the severity of what they deem your track cut. You'll get a certain amount of points, whether that's 0.25 or half a point, or 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. And in a race of this distance, I imagine they're given 5 points in their bank of track cuts, whether they choose to use them intentionally or choose to use them unintentionally. I would imagine most of these drivers are not intentionally cutting the circuit. But it's clear that Louis Curtin has gone over that budget, and that is what has given him the drive-through penalty. That's rubbing salt in a wound for sure, is having your race sort of cut a bit in the closing stages. But those fine margins, whether that was mistakes in clean air, whether that was in clean air, whether that was in the mix of fighting other cars or overtaking them, it ends up that those 4 points, as I've been corrected, were all used up by Louis Curtin. Going into the pit lane now, already down to 6th position, already down to 7th position, as I think actually Van der Weyken just made a bit of a mistake because Osama Kanani just jumped him, in fact. But Louis Curtin out of the pit lane now. It looks like it's going to be 7th place in this race. A bit of heartbreak for sure.
Yeah, will feel very, very heartbreaking, I think. I think there's a number of drivers here today that can naturally feel disappointed about their races that they've had. I mean, Matt Malcolm, of course, was not doing badly, and well, he had his incident, but we are going to have one more lap of racing here today. It's going to be Martin Vesely who takes us onto it. He was very, very quick, sustained the pressure from Hugo Merl, and from that point onwards just absolutely flew away. He was under absolutely no pressure, and well, he succumbed the pressure that he had, and ever since then he's been able to just continue driving around and around and around once again and again and again. He's going to come to the end of 53 laps around this circuit, and he has done an incredible job every single one of them. He's barely, if any, put a feet wrong at any point in this race. And well, Martin Vesely looking very, very good for a race win here. And it is a thoroughly, thoroughly deserved victory that he's going to take. Hugo Merl will come across the line at the moment in second place. He was looking very good, but unfortunately, just it hasn't been necessarily his day. And he will come across the line in second spot, although Van Dries is closing at a rate of knots. Third place at the moment is going to be that Van Dries, Zino Van Dries, who is third at the moment, and he's 19 seconds ahead of Badowski, so if he doesn't make a big DNFing mistake, that is going to be him. The leader at the moment in the LMGT3 class, and what looks like is going to be the leader in the LMGT3 class all the way through, is Matej Kasperzic, and Martin Vasily now around the final corner. He's going to pump draft the Lamborghini up to the line, and Martin Vasily takes the victory here at Fuji. And, well, I mean, I don't know whether that's good news or bad news for Thibaut Roskam ahead, because I think Roskam might have to do one more lap as a result of that one, which Vasily could have gone through easily. But, yeah, Vasily, victory here in Fuji, and a very well-deserved one. Hugo Merl is going to come across the line in second spot. Zino Van Dries in third position, and Marko Badowski will be fourth. As where is Matej Kasperzic on the circuit? Well, the answer is that he is going to come around to the line, and he's not going to bump draft anybody. That LMGT3 has driven an almost perfect race, just like Vasily did. Two thoroughly deserving victors, and it's going to be the LMGT3 of Matej Kasperzic who comes out on top in second place. The Lamborghini of James Cowley will come in second place, and a very well-deserved one from him as well. And Lamborghini will be incredibly happy. Third place in the end for Filip Brescia, and he will be, I think, disappointed with third, as he had a chance to fight for the race win pretty much throughout the race, and that's just getting his frustrations out. And that is going to be his front wing off. That'll be a difficult drive back to pit road, and that's why he's going to reset himself. But that is our podiums completed. That is pretty much everybody up to the line now and completing their races. And, well, Vasily and Kasperzic, victors in both the classes.
Another world-class drive from a lot of these drivers. A really solid race. I think Fuji delivered for us here today. It led to a lot of, unique fights between different cars. It didn't seem that there was, as Thibaut Roskam, poor guy, having to do the very final lap. I imagine he's probably just like, I guess that was like kind of a cool moment to get bum drafted, but I had to do another lap. Thibaut Roskam last across the line, and as I was saying, a great round 4 of the RCI multi-sprint series. We obviously have 2 more races to go and plenty more racing action besides this one, all of which you can catch here on RCI TV. Joseph, that was good, man. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, very, very good. Very, very classic racing. Not much out and out fighting, although we did see a bit of that at the start, especially with Usama Khane. But yeah, not very much out and out racing. Instead, we just got very, very, very well managed racing, and just very good stuff overall. That's exactly what you want to see from a Racing Club International race. And there are your final results on your screen there. Martin Vasily taking the victory ahead of Hugo Merl in second place. Zino Van Dries will take third spot with Marko Badowski in fourth. Klaus Nyring in fifth. And then it is Ryan Gill and Louis Kurt. In fact, all the bump drafting Martin Vasily did meant that he was only 1.9 ahead of Hugo Merl as they crossed the line. Usama Khane in 8th place, Milan van der Weyken in a disappointing 9th, and Billy Octane will round out the top 10. A good recovery from him with Iridaish Partez in 11th, Jack McDonough in 12th, and Martin Maresh and Matt Malcolm rounding out the finishers in the class, while Peter Varga rounds out those who competed today, with Navarro, Sunyaev and Wilkinson not taking part and therefore being classified as a DNF in the hypercar class. And well, it was a decent race in the hypercars, an even better one on track for the LMGT3s. Matej Kasperzic took the victory in the LMGT3s. James Cowley in second spot and Filip Brescia in third. Matt Townsend in the end had to settle for fourth place, just ahead of Raphael Huel, who had a very quiet one in fifth. Tom Shipston, very similar situation. Those two actually ended up very close on circuit in 5th and 6th, with Wojtek Rebecki in 7th. Thibaut Roskam, who of course had to do one more lap, he found himself himself in 8th place, and Cormac Malloy 101 seconds behind him in 9th place. Callum Kerrigan and Kevin Boss must have made for an exciting finish for that 9th spot fight, but they ended in 10th and 11th. Richard Withel, Martin Minarek and Keith Withel rounding out the finishers. Christoph Verstreppen rounding out those who competed today, and Lance Taylor decided not to take part. But yeah, you're right. I think a very, very intriguing race all race long, and Fuji delivered.
Fuji delivered indeed. Cemented this track in my mind as not only a great driver's circuit, but one that enjoyed watching on LMU. It was a pleasure to be here for sure. Unfortunately, I don't think anybody wants to come chat with us. I guess we're too scary. I promise we don't bite, but it doesn't seem that we have any drivers lining up for interviews as they sometimes do. And if anything, this has just got me excited for next week for another one of these rounds. There's some of my favorite racing moments that I get to see here on RCI, and it's not over yet. 2 more rounds to go.
Yeah, 2 more rounds to go in this multi-sprint season. And those 2 rounds will be held in the next 2 weeks. We have Interlagos and Bahrain to round out our season. And, well, just to round out the broadcast for the evening, we'll have a look at the standings as what they were before this round got underway. And, well, of course, it's going to be out of date now, but it's, of course, an interesting one to watch. Louis Curtin had the lead in the hypercar class. That drive-through penalty might have cost him more than he ever thought possible. Klaus Nyring in 2nd place and Ryan Gill in 3rd. Max Sunyaev and Reese Wilkinson didn't take part today. They are in 4th and 5th. And Marco Badowski and Hugo Merle were locked in battle in 6th place. And 7th, of course, Hugo Merle will be ahead of Badowski now. Martin Maresh, Billy Octane and Martin Vesely round out the top 10 there. And then the LMGT3 standings are going to be coming up, but it's the rest of the hypercars. Usama Nani, Iridaeus Partes, Milan van der Weyken and Jan Yeo, Zeno van der Riech, Peter Varga, Colin Campbell, Stefano Lay, Daniel Merchant and Jack McDonough take us to the end of the top 20 in the hypercar standings, and of course some of those would have gained, and now it's the LMGT3 standings, and Christoph Verstreppen has lost a lot after that DNF. He was 20 points ahead of James Cowley, and now that has been slashed. Olivier Brenio in 3rd place. He's on 68 points. He did not show up today. Maciej Kasprzic has closed up the gap after taking the victory. Carlos Cataliud was not here today, so has not added to his 61 points, and Tom Shipston has added to his 54. Philip Brescia, Frank Forrest, Callum Kerrigan and Raphael Huell round out the top 10 in what looks to be a slightly tighter field. Richard Withel is in 11th place, 1 point ahead of Keith. Martin Lawrence, 2 points behind Keith. And Martin Minarek, Kevin Boss, Matt Townsend, Wojtek Rybecki, Ryan Walker, and then Lance Taylor and Thibaut Roskam round out the top 20. Taylor and Roskam without a single point so far this season. And well, it's been a very, very intriguing race so far here today. It sets up the championship very, very nicely heading in to the next round of the season at Interlagos. We will see you next Friday, but until then, it is goodbye from us here at RCI.
You ready? 3, 2, 1, go. Get behind the wheel, let's go. Grip the road, feel the flow. Thunder roaring, steel alive. Live this dream and drive. Tires burning with gasoline. Push the limits, chasing green. One shot, don't slow. Go on, we'll take control. Engines scream alive tonight. Blazing past the red line. Outrun the night, won't lose this fight. Follow the road, red line for show. We're chasing taillights, don't let go. Under the stars, we'll go so far. This is who we are. Chasing taillights.